Hello, everybody. Happy winter solstice. It is December 21st. It's the winter solstice and it's the holidays. I know I celebrate Christmas, so we're getting excited for that in my household. I have little kids, so we're getting very excited for that in my household. But today specifically is like actually, don't tell my children, but kind of more exciting for me than Christmas Day. And I'm a big lover of all things Christmas. Mm. Why is it exciting? Because it is not just the winter solstice. As you may already know, today, just after sunset, the planets Jupiter and Saturn are moving into this alignment called a great conjunction, one that we haven't seen since the Middle Ages. So for the first time in 800 years, these planets are going to be in alignment and visible from Earth. I'm looking outside right now. It's kind of cloudy. But I'm hoping that it clears up a little bit. Now, whether it does or not, and whether we get to see it or not, I don't. That does not take away from from the power of what is happening and how cool it is, because it is a once, like truly a once in a lifetime. Actually, it's more like a once in 10 lifetimes. Um, Experience to be alive on the planet while this is happening. Now, let me be super clear. I am not an expert in astronomy, astrology. I'm an expert in NLP and coaching and other things. But I am super curious, and I do love to follow some really profound teachings around what's going on up in the sky, especially today. So I think it's really interesting. And one of the things I wanted to talk about in this video is what this could look like in terms of if we perceived it as like a cosmic parts integration. I know, like a parts integration, we have Jupiter and we have Saturn, and they are aligning. Actually, I think it's more like this in the sky tonight. Now, while there's like, I think millions and millions and probably billions of miles apart, they actually appear to overlap. When they do, they shine so bright. They actually say that this is what the belief is, that this is what the Star of Bethlehem is not actually a single star, but these two planets sort of visibly colliding, and the visibility of that from Earth. So pretty interesting. Now, what does that mean? What am I talking about with a parts integration? Okay, in NLP, parts exist. All of us have lots of different parts, and when parts are in conflict, it causes problems in our lives. So a parts integration integrates those parts. I'll put it for you this way. Have you ever heard yourself say, well, a part of me wants this, but a part of me wants that? On one hand, I believe this, but on the other hand, I believe something different. Those are parts, okay? It's actually in our language. On one hand, I see it. So it's in our language. Parts are part of all of us. We're all quite fragmented, especially if you haven't done a lot of parts work. And parts are problematic because parts cause conflicts. So let me start by talking about what is a part, okay? A part is like a functional blockage in our neurology. So as human beings, if we were like completely clear, clean programmed, we didn't have stuff that we'd picked up, and we were just in our wholeness, just in our whole and completeness. Sorry, I just need some of my tea. If we were just whole and complete, information would come in and it would process cleanly and clearly, and life would be just grand, wouldn't it? But that's not how we are. Information comes in and it hits these different sort of functional blockages. Now, parts in and of themselves have their own belief system. So it's kind of like having like an invisible internal government with all of these different parts weighing in on the decisions that we make, on the behaviors, on the way that we feel, on the way that we process information, on the way that we filter information. And that's all happens as the information is trying to go through all of these different parts. So it's sort of like this internal government that usually doesn't agree with each other. It's not a good thing. How are parts formed? Where do they come from? Parts are formed usually in the imprint years, but certainly can be formed later. But parts are formed as the result of a significant emotional event. Okay, so as an acronym, that's a C. And what is a C? Well, it's an event that was significant and charged with emotion. Okay, so that could be something little. Like I remember as a little girl being in Woolco with my mom and getting separated from her and customer service taking me and then them having to page my mom over the intercom at Wilco and being absolutely terrified that that my mom was gone. Now, of course, she wasn't gone. She was probably my mom and I share a passion for shopping, so she was clearly just shopping. But the scared little girl could have formed a part, right? So it could have been a rather innocent, significant emotional event like that. Those happen all the time. And trust me, they do have an impact on us. They have an impact on our beliefs, right? Because the neurology of the 42-year-old woman that I am knows, like, no, mom was around. She would be there. She would never leave you. But the child doesn't know that. The child only has the neurology and the awareness of a child to deal with at that time. So they might, you don't know. Right? So that does have an impact. There's also the type of significant emotional events that are sort of what we perceive to be traditionally traumatic, like abuses, the bad things that happen, right? The different types of abuse that can occur, like actual abandonment that happens, like negative emotions, witnessing things that we don't have the capacity to understand as children. The breakup that was like devastating as a teenager, the teacher that shamed you in school, in front of your peers. These things can all show up as parts. Now, here's the thing with the parts, okay? I already said this, but now that you know where they come from, I'll say it again. Parts develop their own belief systems, their own values systems, their own programs. And when information comes in and it runs into one of those parts, it kind of goes sideways, and that leaves us feeling fragmented. It leaves us feeling conflicted. Right? So this is where, what do we see all the time in trainings is part of me really believes that I can have this business of my dreams and be of service and make lots of money and get lots of clients. And this is what I'm born to do, that this is my calling. And part of me is terrified that I can't make it work, doesn't think I have what it takes, thinks that I'm too this or not enough that, and is rooted in scarcity, right? So we have these parts. Part of me believes in abundance. Part of me believes in scarcity. Part of me believes in myself. Part of me doubts myself. We have parts. They operate in our relationships, in our health, in our career, in our business, in our finances. The parts are everywhere. Now, luckily for us, we don't have to go inside of those significant emotional events to heal them. We definitely don't have to do that. And that's really great. We in NLP have a tool called a parts integration. In evolved NLP, we've evolved the parts integration to a quantum parts integration. It includes our process for clearing denial, as well as some forgiveness statements inside of the parts, because forgiveness is a wonderful way of integrating all of these different parts. So if you're NLP trained or evolved NLP trained with us, then I think right now what's going on in the universe with these two planets would be a sign that this would be a really great time to address any parts that you have as you're leaving 2020 and moving into 2021. I think this is a great time to look at parts that are showing up in your daily life. I would also encourage you to chunk up and look at what parts are showing up in terms of the projected consciousness on the planet, right? When we turn on the news, when we look at the political scene, when we look at the sort of the state of humanity right now, and what are the parts conflicts that are showing up, because there's lots of them. To name a few, we've got like the level of divisiveness and the split is like a massive parts conflict going on. I know certainly as in March, when we entered this sort of pandemic state and looking at what was going on, there were times that I felt completely overwhelmed and really hopeless. Now, it was never that like all of me felt that hopelessness. That's just not even who I am. Hope is one of the sort of like high order values in my life, but there was a part of me at times that was feeling hopeless. That was a pretty powerful parts integration that I did back in the spring. We have these parts that show up as the profane masculine and profane feminine. And I'm not talking about male and female, but they can show up very male and female. But the profane masculine is the misogyny, the shutting down, the turning off, the complete lack of compassion, complete lack of like conscience and extreme action taking in the profane. Whereas the profane feminine is sort of the opposite. The profane feminine is the like, Liz Gilbert did a talk about this in Toronto a couple of years ago. She said it was like the doubling down on compassion when boundaries were needed. and when voice and action and using your voice was needed. So the profane feminine is the sort of making excuses for the profane masculine. It's the lack of boundaries. It's the lack of speaking up, the over sympathizing, and the allowing of hatred to penetrate our world. So there we go. I know, not the like cheeriest subject, but huge parts integration right there in terms of the profane masculine and the profane feminine. And I like to sort of challenge myself, and I would challenge all of you to look at how that shows up in your life and consider how that could be more integrated. I think the profane masculine has been on display for a very, very long time, but most notably in the last 4 years. And it's shown up in leadership, and it's time that we heal that. It's time that we heal that, and the divine masculine being sort of like a softening and an awakening of compassion and an awakening of empathy, and the divine feminine being an awakening of authenticity and of voice and of boundaries and of, Liz Gilbert said, like drawing the sacred sort of golden circle around what is okay and what is not okay, and being able to stand in that. But how do we integrate all of that? Well, we have to deal with these parts. Okay, so if you're trained, then I encourage you, please, I think you'd be doing a great gift to yourself and to humanity to integrate those parts. If you're not trained, then take the awareness. And in NLP, we believe that every problem has a higher order job it's doing. Right? Every problem is there to complete a job. So I sometimes like to just go into meditation and ask my unconscious mind to connect to my higher self and find a healthier way to get the job done, one that is in the highest good of all. So that's a little bit on parts. Now back to this solstice and this great conjunction. So what is happening? Jupiter and Saturn are aligning for the first time since 1226. Now here's where I want to go a little bit mystical and a little bit spiritual with you. Feel free to go there with me. If that's not you, cool. You can entertain it, or you can not. I'm good with either. But these two worlds are aligning. I think it's like a cosmic parts integration that's happening, that's taking place, at least energetically. I think it's the universe setting up the conditions for us, humanity, to do some of this healing work. And what's interesting, and one of our grads actually posted this a little while ago. I had posted saying like, hey, these planets are showing up. It's, this is what's known as the Star of Bethlehem. Isn't that really cool? Once in a 10 lifetime experience. And she had posted sort of a follow-up saying that, it was a post saying that looked up when this had happened last in 1226 and what was going on in the world then. And what's really interesting is that was at the height of this crusade to basically like abolish, eradicate the followers of Mary Magdalene, the Cathars. Now, I'm not going to get into a full-blown history lesson because, again, I'm not an expert in history, but I am a big fan of Sacred Feminine. I do love my Mary Magdalene and my Virgin Mary energies and archetypes, as well as the masculine side and other non-Christian expressions of divine masculine and feminine too. But I think it's really fascinating. So ironically, it was Pope Innocent who ordered the crusade to destroy and kill all of these people. The first launch against them killed like 20,000, mostly women and children who were followers of Magdalene. And the Cathars were the keepers of the knowledge of the Holy Grail, were the keepers of the sacred feminine, and have been largely sort of like underground for almost 1,000 years. So really interesting stuff happening. So this person had posted this sort of saying like, maybe this is the parts integration, where for the last 800 years we've been experiencing one thing, and maybe it's time to come back into balance. Now, my personal belief is that the masculine and feminine, and the sacred masculine and sacred feminine can exist together in total balance and harmony. I really hope that's what's happening on the planet. I don't think it's an out there decision that gets made. I think it's a decision that you and I and other people who are choosing to awaken to the possibility of co-creating reality get to make. So I know what I will be doing this evening. I will be integrating these parts because I would really love to see that being true. I would love to see this true healing so that we can bring the sacred feminine back into the world in a really true, like congruent and authentic way alongside the sacred masculine. And I think that's really important, and I think it could be happening. So tonight, just after sunset, go outside if you have a clear night, look southwest, you will see these two planets converge. It's supposed to be quite spectacular, especially if you have a telescope to see it through, which I do. I'm going to go and check to see if it's working before we bring it outside. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, and if there's a part of you that liked it and a part of you that didn't, then integrate those parts. And if you want to learn more about parts integration, about evolved NLP, about doing sort of this kind of work and having a really wonderful career doing it, where where you truly can honor the part of you that wants to follow your dreams, then please feel free to respond, direct message, email. Laura@AvalonEmpowerment.com is my email, and we'd love to have those conversations because I think that we are just at the tip of the iceberg of what is possible for our lifetimes, and I'm super excited to be co-creating it.